My boyfriend was my girlfriend. Intro. The roar of the crowd was a physical thing, a tidal wave of sound that vibrated through the bleachers and into Maya's bones. On the field, under the glaring Friday night lights, number 44 broke through the defensive line, a blur of crimson and white, moving with a power that seemed to defy physics. Alex A.J. Johnson stiff-armed one would-be tackler and hurdled another, his cleats churning up chunks of grass as he sprinted for a touchdown. The stadium erupted. Maya cheered with everyone else, a proud smile on her face, but her applause was always a beat too late, a decibel too quiet. She was cheering for the idea of him, the spectacle. The real Alex, the one she knew, would have been wincing at the noise, not basking in it. That was the central paradox of Alex Johnson. Publicly, he was the star running back of the Clayton State Cougars, a campus deity carved from muscle and grit. Privately, he was a boy with a voice like soft velvet, who blushed when complimented, and whose hands, though strong and capable, were always remarkably gentle. Their relationship had been a surprise to everyone, especially Maya. She was an art history major who preferred the quiet of the library to the chaos of a tailgate. They'd met in the most unlikeliest of places, the campus greenhouse. She was sketching the intricate veins of a monstera leaf. He was hiding from a throng of fans, pretending to have a sudden, profound interest in orchids. "They're just so delicate," he'd said, his voice barely a whisper, his massive frame looking comically out of place among the fragile plants. Maya had laughed, not at him, but at the sheer unexpectedness of him. They are. They need a specific kind of care. He looked at her then, his brown eyes wide and earnest. "I get that." That was 6 months ago. Since then, she'd learned the nuances of the man behind the helmet. She saw how he'd subtly flinch at the backslapping bravado of his teammates. She noticed how his eyes would linger on the colorful fabrics of her dresses hanging in the closet, or on the glittering nail polish bottles lined up on her desk.
"I like that color on you," he'd murmured once, tracing the line of her fuchsia nail polish with a tentative finger. "It's bold." "Thanks," she'd said, watching him. "You have good nails for polish. Nice long nail beds." He pulled his hand back as if burned, a faint pink creeping up his neck. "Nah, these are just football hands." But they weren't. They were smooth, the nails neatly filed, unlike the battered, calloused hands of his teammates. His entire body was like that, a sculpted, hairless marvel of athleticism that looked less like a bruising fullback and more like a classical statue of a Greek god. He was toned, not bulky, with a swimmer's build that his pads and jersey always obscured. Tonight, after the game, the rain had started. It wasn't a gentle drizzle, but a torrential downpour, lashing against the windows of Maya's off-campus apartment. She texted him after his mandatory team meeting. "Come straight over. I have hot chocolate." The knock on her door was timid, a stark contrast to the force he displayed on the field. She opened it to find him drenched. Water streamed from his dark hair, plastering it to his forehead. His Letterman jacket was sodden, heavy with rain, and his jeans were dark and clinging. He looked like a drowned puppy, shivering slightly on her welcome mat. "Get in here," she said, pulling him inside. "You're soaked through." "Sorry," he mumbled, stepping carefully onto her rug. "My umbrella broke." "Your umbrella was no match for that," she laughed, taking his jacket. It felt like it weighed 20 pounds. "You need to get out of those wet clothes. You'll catch a cold." She went to her small dresser, pulling out a pair of her comfiest sleep shorts, soft sky blue cotton with a tiny pattern of white clouds. Then she grabbed a top, a lavender racerback tank top made of a stretchy, silky material. It was unmistakably feminine. She held them out to him. "Here, these should be stretchy enough."
Alex stared at the clothes in her hands, his expression unreadable. A complex war of emotions played out on his face: embarrassment, hesitation, and something else, something that looked startlingly like longing. I can't wear that, Maya, he said, his voice even softer than usual. I can dry my jeans by the heater. Don't be ridiculous, she insisted, pressing the soft fabric into his hands. They're just clothes. Go on. The bathroom's through there. I'll make the hot chocolate. He looked down at the lavender top, his thumbs stroking the material almost unconsciously. Finally, he gave a tiny nod and retreated into the bathroom, closing the door behind him. Maya busied herself in the kitchenette, heating milk on the stove and stirring in cocoa powder and a dash of cinnamon. The rain drummed a steady rhythm on the roof. She tried not to think about what she was doing, not to examine the strange, curious impulse that had made her offer him her clothes. It was practical, she told herself. That was all. When the bathroom door creaked open, she turned around, a mug in each hand, and she almost dropped them. Alex stood framed in the doorway, hesitant, his arms crossed self-consciously over his chest. The lavender tank top fit him perfectly. It clung to the defined planes of his chest and shoulders, the color a shocking contrast against his tanned skin. The racerback showed off the elegant sweep of his back muscles. The sky blue shorts, meant to hit mid-thigh on her, were significantly shorter on him, showcasing his long, powerfully built, yet completely hairless legs. He was breathtaking, not in the way a football player is breathtaking, but in the way a dancer or a model is. The feminine cut of the clothes didn't hide his masculinity. It reframed it, highlighting a grace and beauty she had always sensed, but never seen so clearly exposed. I look ridiculous, he whispered, his gaze fixed on the floor. A deep blush covered his face and chest. Maya set the mugs down carefully, her heart hammering in a way that had nothing to do with the hot chocolate. No, she said, and her voice was surprisingly steady. You don't. You look comfortable. She walked over to him, stopping a few feet away. The air between them was charged with a new unspoken tension. He uncrossed his arms, letting them hang at his sides, and finally met her eyes. His were wide, with a mixture of shame and a desperate need for reassurance. Really? He asked, the word barely audible. Really? She reached out and, before she could second-guess herself, gently took his hand. She turned it over, running her thumb over his smooth knuckles and his neatly filed nails. See? I told you had good nails for polish. He didn't pull away. Instead, his fingers intertwined with hers, a silent thank you. His hand was warm in hers, strong, yet yielding. They drank their hot chocolate on the couch, the lights dim, the storm raging outside. Alex seemed to relax by degrees, the initial shock of his attire giving way to a quiet ease. He sat with his legs curled up slightly, the position looking strangely natural on him. The silky fabric of the top shifted with every breath, and Maya found her eyes drawn to the way it moved over his skin. He started talking, his words tumbling out in a soft, hesitant stream. He talked about the pressure of the game, the constant need to be on, to be the loud, aggressive AJ everyone expected. He spoke of the locker room, a world of grunting and crude jokes, where he felt like an imposter. Sometimes, he confessed, staring into his mug, I just want quiet. I notice things, like the way the light comes through your window in the afternoon and makes patterns on the floor, or the different shades of green in the leaves on the tree outside. The guys, they'd think that was stupid. It's not stupid, Maya said softly. It's beautiful. He looked at her then, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I like your world, Maya. The colors, the textures, the softness. It feels real. Her heart ached for him. She saw the prison of his own popularity, the lonely burden of being a symbol of masculinity that didn't fit. The boy in the lavender top, talking about light and leaves, was the real Alex. The football player was the costume. When it was time for him to go, the rain had softened to a mist. He changed back into his dry, warmed jeans and jacket, the transformation back to AJ feeling like a loss. At the door, he hesitated. "Thanks," he said, "for everything. The clothes, the cocoa, for not laughing." "I would never laugh," Maya said, meaning it with every fiber of her being. He leaned down and kissed her, a soft, lingering kiss that tasted of chocolate and a profound, grateful sweetness. Then he was gone, disappearing into the damp night. Maya closed the door and leaned against it, her mind reeling. She walked back into the living room and picked up the lavender top from where he'd folded it neatly on the bathroom counter. It still held the faint, clean scent of his skin. She didn't say anything to him the next day or the day after. She didn't ask the questions burning on her tongue. Instead, she started to observe. She saw the way his eyes lit up when she wore a new dress. She noticed how he always chose the most colorful smoothie at the campus cafe, the bright pink ones with strawberry and dragon fruit. She saw the secret, appreciative glances he gave other women, not with lust, but with a kind of aesthetic envy. A plan began to form in her mind, delicate and careful as a spider's web. It was an experiment, an offering. A week after the rainstorm, they were studying in her apartment. Well, Maya was studying. Alex was ostensibly reading a play for his literature class, but she caught him staring out the window, a faint smile on his lips. "Hey," she said casually, closing her textbook. "I was thinking of painting my nails. Want me to do yours?" The room went utterly still. Alex froze, his book forgotten in his lap. He didn't look at her. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Maya held her breath, afraid she had shattered the fragile understanding between them. Then, ever so slowly, he turned his head. The fear in his eyes was palpable, but beneath it was a flicker of that same longing she'd seen the night of the storm. "Just a clear coat," she added gently, as if it were the most normal suggestion in the world. "No one would even notice. It would just make them shiny." He looked down at his hands, then back at her. He swallowed hard. The internal battle was visible on his face, the fear of discovery against the desperate desire to try. Finally, in a voice so quiet it was almost carried away on the breeze from the open window, he answered, "Okay."